I want to talk about India a little bit. So China and India have had a difficult period of tension in the past 2 years. It has somewhat stabilized in recent months. So how do you see this tension in the next few years from Pakistan's perspective?
See, Dr. Eric, I know India better than probably most Pakistanis. And that was because of cricket, because cricket is a religion almost in both the countries. It is the most, people are fanatical about watching cricket. So being a cricketer, I used to play there a lot, and I got a lot of love and respect in India. And I probably know India and Indians better than most Pakistanis. When my government came into power, my first priority was to normalize our relationship with India. And we have only one issue with India, and that is the Kashmir, where India is denying the people of Kashmir the right of self-determination, which was guaranteed by United Nations Security Council resolutions. And unfortunately, India has been denying them that right. And it's a disputed territory between Pakistan and India, acknowledged by the UN. But unfortunately, and I say very unfortunately, because I think it already is, and in future it will hurt the people of India much more than, say, even Pakistan or China. So what is happening in India is this government which only thinks that India belongs to Hindus. And in doing so, it is basically marginalizing something like 600-700 million human beings who are now considered second-class citizens, including the 200 million Muslims in India. So it is a terrible situation for India. And I must say, as someone who knows India, I think it's a great tragedy that has happened to India. And that's why India is having problems from within, and it is having problems with its neighbors. We just hope that better sense prevails there, because as things are going, I think India is going to damage itself much more than anyone else.
Oh, this certainly sounds concerning. So, Prime Minister, how do you see Pakistan's relationship with the United States in the next several years? With its failures in both Iraq and Afghanistan and many internal problems, the US seems to have lost much of the hegemonic power it acquired at the end of the Cold War. Are we moving towards a more multipolar world order? And how do you see the rivalry between China and the US in this new global situation? And where would you place Pakistan in this new situation?
Dr. Eric, look, anyone who's a student of history, like I'm sure you are, I certainly am, there is no such thing as any one nation staying on top forever. It just doesn't happen. All nations go through the same. They go through a period of real self-belief and hard work, and they're motivated, and they just forge ahead of other nations. But there always comes a time when that nation relaxes, it loses that motivation, and then some other nation comes up. This is a human history. The last thing the world wants is another Cold War. And I say this with a lot of fear, the sad trend, unfortunate trend of this rivalry between the US and China. If this could easily turn into healthy competition, and in that the whole world gains from it. But if it goes into a Cold War type situation, like we witnessed, after the Second World War between the Soviets and the US, I think the world does not want another Cold War. And for Pakistan, again, I repeat, my concentration is only on one thing: how to look after the 220 million Pakistanis. Half of them are not in a good place, who are hovering on the above poverty line, and half of them below. I mean, the bottom 50% is hovering on the poverty line. So my main concentration is how do we look after our people? How do we provide them their basic necessities? How do we bring rule of law in my country? And the last thing we want is any sort of conflict. So Pakistan, and to answer your question, I see Pakistan's role as maybe one day replicating the role Pakistan played in 1970 when it brought China and the United States together, when Dr. Kissinger made his famous visit to China. I see our role again, us playing that similar role, rather than, getting caught up in these rival blocs. I think the world will suffer because of this, if it happens.
Yes, indeed. I think China certainly is not looking for a new Cold War. I have a sensitive question for you, Prime Minister. The United States and Europe have accused China of genocide against the Uyghurs in Xinjiang. Now, as the leader of a major Muslim country and a country that shares a border with China and geographically close to Xinjiang, what do you see from your perspective?
Dr. Eric, we especially asked our ambassador in China, Moin al-Haq, to go and have a look in Sinkiyang and find out what is actually going on. And the report he gave to us was completely different to what is coming out on the Western media. According to him, there is more development taking place. The emphasis on development in Sinkiyang is unprecedented. He did mention that there were terrorist attacks by ETIM, and therefore, because of that, there is a certain security issue. But, the sort of things we were told don't exist in Sinkiyang and against the Uyghurs.
Well, that's a lot of information. Well, thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. So my last question, we all know Pakistan has been a great and close friend of China's for many, many years. We call you Bhatia, as you know, and we all wish Pakistan well. So please tell us, what is your long-term vision for your country?
Dr. Eric, let me say first of all that, United States has been also a good friend of Pakistan. But it hasn't been a sort of, like with China, an all-weather friend. There have been times when the US has been very friendly, but then, when they think Pakistan is not of use to them, then we get abandoned, and then they again sort of become friendly. For instance, Pakistan became a frontline state against the Soviets in Afghanistan, so Pakistan became a friend of US, and sort of they even helped us and they were good to us. But the moment the Soviets left, they slapped sanctions on Pakistan. But then 10 years later, when again 9/11 happened, they again became very good to us. But then when they could not win in Afghanistan, then we were blamed for this debacle, what took place in Afghanistan. So with US, it's not really been what it has been with China, an all-weather friend. China, for 70 years, our relationship, it has been consistent. Pakistan has, at every possible forum, stood with China. And China, whenever Pakistan has needed China, China has stood with us. And so it's gone deep into our public. It's a people-to-people thing now. It doesn't matter whether Imran Khan is in power or someone else is in power. Whoever comes to power in Pakistan will always have a very close friendship with China because it's a people-to-people friendship.
Yes, of course. I think we feel the same here. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for your time. It's been a great honor. And I think you'll reach a lot of Chinese audience. And thank you very much for being at the Olympics and show your great support for this amazing event.
Thank you, Dr.